Hello and welcome to the very first B-Sides Campfire Stories. We are very excited to come to you today, and we appreciate all of the patience that you have shown because in true B-Sides fashion, we're starting just a little bit late. We have a lot of really cool stories for you today. Before we get to those, I want to first off thank Lickety and thank Nouse for getting everything set up for us. Without them, none of this would be able to happen. Also, thank our judges and our storytellers because they are all awesome, and I'm excited to see what they bring to you, and I'm excited for you to hear what comes from them. As you can tell, I am sitting in front of my natural fire, totally natural, not at all lit by an LED panel above my head. Because humans are natural storytellers. We've had a long history of storytelling throughout humanity, and this is the way that we've collectively passed on wisdom through the ages. Sitting around a campfire, enjoying some roasted marshmallows or whatever you care to cook over the campfire. That's the way that we pass on our information. And we do it at HackerCons just in hallways or over Korean barbecue or at fancy restaurants or at bars. And so we wanted to bring a little bit of that to the virtual environment to do some of this storytelling. We've got several speakers who stepped up to the virtual campfire. They're sitting here with their marshmallows on stick, chocolate on graham crackers, ready to make s'mores. And we'll get to them in just a second. The way we're going to work this is we're going to ask each storyteller to step up, and then we're going to have a panel of distinguished individuals, ask them a few questions, just a little bit of follow-up, and then the next storyteller will step up and tell their tale. At the end of all the stories, we're going to have a special celebrity guest stop by and tell us a story while the judges deliberate. Then we'll come back, we'll announce the winner. Now, at this point, I would like to introduce our panel of judges to give a couple of quick words each for who they are, what their background is, whatever they want to tell you. And with that, I will turn it over to Cindy.
You're on mute, Cindy.
Cindy is on mute.
Of course I am, because why should technology work any different in the evening sitting in front of a campfire as it does in my office on the daily? Hi, everyone. I'm Cindy Jones, Cinders and Ashes, or just Cinders. Really excited to be here, really excited to hear these stories. I am the president of the board of directors for B-Sides Las Vegas, long time volunteer, and I'm just looking forward to this. I've got my campfire burning over here. We're holding off on the s'mores till after I eat some dinner, but looking forward to the dessert.
All right. Thank you, Cindy. And now, Rob, why don't you introduce yourself? Rob is also on mute.
Sorry, is it my turn to say hi?
It is your turn to say hi, Rob. Yes.
I was saying goodnight to my kids. So I'm Rob. I do hacking stuff, I guess, and I started doing campfire stories back at ShmooCon in 2007-ish, 2008, and it's cool that we get to say campfire stories all over the place. This is definitely not my thing. Bo made this possible and made this amazing setup, and I'm looking forward to all those stories.
Great. And yeah, Rob, I remember you gave a talk about hacker ghost stories,
Yes.
What keeps red teamers up at night. And that was great. That was one of the inspirations for how we want to run this. So I greatly appreciate your contributions. And let me throw it over to Naus. Naus, introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. I'm Naus. I'm the executive producer and chief operations officer for B-Sides Las Vegas, which means herding all of these cats is my job. And I'm the one ultimately responsible if things go well or if they go poorly. I'm super excited to see what we throw together here tonight and how the rest of the weekend goes. And as always, I'm just ecstatic to be with my people. So thank you.
I love how you frame it. Let's see what we throw together. And I realize I neglected to introduce myself at the start, so I'll do that now. My name is Bo Woods. I run a couple of tracks at B-Sides. I am the cavalry track and public grounds, and I am very excited to be here as your host for this first ever thrown together campfire stories. Hopefully, the storytellers make up for some of my lack of preparation in this, as I know that most of these folks are really great at storytelling. So
don't be so hard on yourself, Bo. You've had a difficult few weeks leading up to this, so we completely understand.
Yeah. For those who don't know, I am over an Armenian campfire tonight where we are cooking horvats for dinner. So without further ado, I want to invite S. Fractal, aka Duncan Sparrow, to step up to the stage, and he will tell us about Overlord, Desert Shield, the sequel. Duncan, take it away.
Thanks, Bo. Overlord is a World War II horror movie where the heroes go behind enemy lines and discover a Nazi experimental lab to create zombie soldiers. I'm going to tell my part in a true life sequel to Overlord about a cyber war operation as part of Operation Desert Shield, the lead up to Operation Desert Storm. The only zombies are going to be zombie processes, and I didn't go behind enemy lines myself, only my bits did. So I don't know if you'll be scared by this tale, but I left this operation very scared, and that's what led to my last 30 years in cybersecurity, because this started back in 1990, which is a really long time ago. The internet was tiny, it was basically useless back then, and it was the year the first browser was invented. In 1990, most data communications were still done via 4,800 baud dial-up modems. Note that's in kilobits, not megabits or gigabits. Iraqi had invaded Kuwait and annexed it. The US and allied countries objected, and we declared war on them. And Desert Shield was the buildup and preparation for Operation Desert Storm, the first Iraqi war. Now, one of Operation Desert Shield's objectives was, quote, preparing the battlefield, end quote. So let me digress a second into why I was chosen voluntold to be part of this. Turns out I had a minor reputation in the hacking community that I didn't even know existed. I ran a quote special projects end quote mini business unit in AT&T, where basically I was a benevolent insider as opposed to a malevolent insider. And I worked for the law enforcement intelligence communities. Another background fact: AT&T was the prime contractor on the Kuwaiti air defense comms, which became part of the Iraqi air defense comms with the annexation. You can probably correlate the dots there. So based on my software experience, my clearances, my quote hacker reputation, I was read into a special access program in the Air Force Information Warfare Center, an operational command to use cyber in battle. Now note, I never heard of AFWIC. I didn't even conceive of the concept of a cyber attack, which is totally new. Remember, this is 30 years ago. So yes, I was naive, but it didn't take me long to adapt. As it turns out, I'm really good at thinking evilly. So I had to go undercover 3 times in 3 different roles as part of this operation. That was very light cover in the US for pretty safe environments, but it was still extremely nerve-wracking. I'd supported lots of undercover FBI ops, but actually doing it was a whole different ballgame, and very scary, for me at least. Our mission was to hack into the Iraqi air defense communications network and man in the middle of the comms to allow the US military to give false orders to the Iraqi military, in particular to protect our incoming aircraft from their air defense. Now, security consists of confidentiality, integrity, and availability. I'd been, messing with confidentiality in my SIGINT role and blocking communications. I sort of understood that and how we could do that as part of this. But the whole issue of messing with integrity was brand new to me and very powerful. So I learned a lot about cyber attack techniques from the Special K NSA employees. I learned a lot from the CIA members of the team on social engineering. The role playing and practice prior to the actual social op was very eye-opening. But I learned the most from my Air Force counterparts on mission planning, decision trees, and how much science goes into the process of planning a mission. One tidbit that I hadn't appreciated, I still think most people don't appreciate, is that sort of everything's ancillary to the main mission. If you have to do bank shots, social engineering, malware, supply chain, whatever, those are all just techniques to achieve the mission. Now, another nightmare aspect of this particular mission was the rules of engagement. Remember, nobody had done this before, so nobody knew what they were. It was virgin territory. So we unfortunately were held to much tighter rules than what they're held to nowadays. We had everything planned. We did lots of practice ops, which is really where I learned everything. But we weren't green lighted until the special op teams were actually allowed to physically go in country 2 days before 0 hour. So now the Iraqis at this point knew war was imminent, and that literally the day before our green light, they pulled all the comms and switched them to human operator connected. Now earlier I'd enlisted some AT&T operators to sort of help us as part of our sort of undercover thing. And we worked with the CIA guys to actually try and social engineer our way through that, but we weren't successful. The Iraqi operator actually said, somebody had to translate it for me, there's a military officer with a gun checking every call I put through. I'm not risking it. So anyway, that didn't work out, but we still had learned a lot from it. And we'd actually tried one final leg in our decision tree was to basically the special forces that went in, we were going to have them do the hacking from in country. We'd even train some of them in how to do it. But because again, it was literally the bombers were taken off at that point. So unfortunately it came in too late. Now, just like in the movies, there are several side notes that occurred during this for comic relief, but time's short, so I had to cut those out of the talk. But I left operation with appreciation of the planning that goes into a military operation. And most importantly, I was very scared for the future. I appreciated how easily it would be for bad actors to do to AT&T where I worked what I was trying to do to the Iraqi comms networks. So I went back, co-founded the AT&T Chief Security Office and established the first ever SOC. So there's never enough time. I think my 5 minutes are up. So thank you for yours.
All right. Thank you, Duncan. Ended just on time, as I would expect from military precision. And that is the alarm saying that your time is up. Perfect timing. So I've got a quick question for you, and then I'll pass around to the other judges. If you have a short vignette of one of the scariest things that you encountered, or what you felt while you were there that scared you, what was that?
Well, there are actually a couple of things I actually had to do undercover, and some of them, like basically talking the operators through talking the Iraqi operators was really all distant stuff. But for some weird classification reasons, I actually had to do part of it literally undercover. I had to pretend to be a government employee. Now, I'd actually helped the FBI with undercover ops before, and I actually helped them pretend to be AT&T employees before. So I sort of knew how hard it was. And I'd been working with the government for a long time. But until you're like actually there and physically trying to be somebody else when you're doing it, even though it was a safe environment, it wasn't like the real FBI agents could get killed when this happened. But this was really just for weird government classification reasons, we had to have more people involved than were actually allowed to be briefed and know what we were doing. So I had to pretend to be a govy guy in it. And it was just scary pretending to be somebody else.
Fair enough. I know a lot of us feel that same fear every day as we go and do social engineering. So
exactly.
Cindy, any questions from you?
Yeah. How long were you in the position that you were in performing these activities?
So I think we invaded in about August. The op started in, I think it was September. So it's basically September through December was all really the prep and the setup and the practice and everything else. But the actual attempt to get in, we started, I think the bombers took off on the 17th and they gave us the green light on the 14th, I think. And so that's when we were actually trying to do it. So it's like, almost 6 months of preparation for like 3 days of actual attack.
Wow. That's intense.
Rob.
What do you think the biggest mindset shift that you had during this time was? What did you go in thinking like this way and then came out thinking a different way?
Literally the concept that people would do this, like once I get into it, I actually was pretty good at it and everything, but just the fact that you could want to do it and could do it, and then how easy it was to do stuff. Like I said, I literally went back and briefed extremely official extremely high AT&T officers on hey, we got to start worrying about this stuff because people could like really do bad things to us. So, and it was really, really eye-opening. Now, again, now you guys are all like probably laughing at that, but this was 30 years ago. It was a different world back then.
Now, so any questions from you?
Have you come to enjoy that sort of activity in a less maybe life and death sort of situation?
Yes, and I, my tagline is "Think evilly, act ethically." So I went back to AT&T, and I was always the tinfoil hat guy on, hey, we got to worry about people doing this. So I'd think of what other people could do to us, which is like way easier. Yes, so I really did enjoy it. I still enjoy it, actually. So.
All right. Well, Duncan, thank you very much for that. That hopefully scared and delighted and entertained everybody. Next up, we have Cell Phone Dude. Cell Phone Dude, PKing on your creds. You're up at the campfire.
Hey, I'm Cell Phone Dude. Nice to see you guys tonight, even though I kind of can't see you because I got campfire in like 3 walls right now, but we're good. My story tonight is about doing an investigation for a company, very well-known company who shall remain nameless, that maybe, just maybe, has all their keys wrapped up into one. And with that, I'll get started. For many moons, the threat actor quietly perused the target's infrastructure, while slowly and effectively enumerating endpoints and targets of value. While slithering through PAM modules and VPNs, our threat actors found themselves with the keys of the kingdom that they breached, but how to use as. That is the tale of the evening, how national threat actors targeted a PAM module to print and ship credentials back to their infra once they were the holder of the creds to worthy members of the target's organizations. Our faithful criminals had access to the holy source code, not only source, but definitions, packages alike, the signing key used for all the target's hardware deployed worldwide. The attackers of this story waited patiently and methodically, gathering intel about their targets late into the night, exfiltrating terabytes upon terabytes of the holy source. Then they built their own custom definition files, likely removing their attack infrastructure from the block list, so they could launch attacks on one specific unsuspecting customer. You see, this story isn't about what national threat actors did to a major network appliance manufacturer, but how that manufacturer was attacked by one nation state to attack another. Yes, kids, this story is of management not understanding the real ramifications of not having proper key management infrastructure in place. The moral of this story is that a single point of failure is always going to fail. Thanks for listening to my campfire story.
Love it. Short but sweet. And I know for a lot of people, PKI itself is a terrifying, scary, spooky story that you tell, hopefully with a cold one in hand. When you were investigating this, what was the thing that you found to be maybe one of the things that you would do differently in retrospect, or that they could have done differently in retrospect, that would have avoided this scary tale?
Wow. So one big gnarly thing that I think a lot of time is insecurity, especially dealing with upper management. We find ourselves in situations where it's like, we want convenience, but we also want security. So SSO is awesome until SSO is the reason why you get popped and someone gets access to your VPN. And so in retrospect, if I were this company, I was going to do it differently. I definitely institute additional OTP on certain entry points, like the VPN dial-in procedure, et cetera, et cetera. That's probably something I definitely would have changed if it was mine.
So single sign-on is great, but for getting access to particularly sensitive equipment, perhaps multi-factor authentication or some kind of other out-of-band confirmation would be better.
Yeah.
Very good. All right. Any of my other judges have any questions for Cell Phone Dude?
I do. Curious how receptive, and were you able to discern how quickly or if remediation took place on the part of the client afterwards? Or was it one of those drop the mic and walk away that we're so familiar with?
So this was a situation where two really large, well-named, very expensive firms came and did the work before me and told the client there was nothing there. And then so we got brought on to do thing, and the scope was like 8 boxes. Very quickly, I told them, I need to scan your entire infrastructure, all 3,500. They're like, no way, that's insane. You can't do that. I'm like, yeah, actually I can. But like, if you think that your scope is these 8 boxes, you guys are fucking crazy. And that's really what it was, because I know, because I ended up talking to one of the investigators from other company privately, and we were comparing notes and telling jokes, and realized that we worked in the same thing, and found out from him like a year or so later, oh yeah, no, the scope stayed on said 8 boxes. And so a lot of times, like I find myself in these situations all the time where clients always want to think they know where a thing is because of a end result of the core cause of what happened. Your application went down, or you lost access to these services, and because you lost access to these services, it was clearly this box. Nah, that was just what happened after someone had been in your infrastructure for like 6 months, because we're going through logs. And what happened was we ended up running out of time on their engagement because we were the third company. They ran out of budget to pay us. So we're like the lowest paid company doing this particular engagement. But after going through enough logs to find out that they had been in their infrastructure for just over 6 months, and the entire time they were exfilling source code and definition packages, probably meanwhile reverse engineering said definition packages so they could understand how they worked, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It got to a point where we submitted our report, and for 4 or 5 months, I fought with their GC, their general counsel, their lawyers, on redacting parts of my report because they didn't like some of my findings. And my stance was, sorry, I have a reputation on the line. I ain't redacting shit. What I found is what I found. If you want to redact it, that's on fucking you. So take the black market for this shit if you want, and then scan it. I don't know what to tell you.
Sorry, I'm very familiar with that feeling as well. So yeah, I feel you.
As a CEO of the company, I get to say shit like that, and there's like no ramifications because it's my fucking company. So you hired us. Unfortunately, I'm kind of a bull in a china shop. I try to do things the right way. So I'm not going to change my ethics because you don't like how bad the information is. From what I heard on particular investigation, these guys had been begging their upper management for a better answer to PKI infrastructure. And I find a lot of times what happens is we know what the right thing is to do, but finding the right talking points and the right way to communicate to upper management to be effective in the execution of the right security controls that need to be in place to move forward. That's always a hard conversation, and us determining and figuring out a way to communicate the value proposition.
Well, that's you mentioned several scary things that I know keep hackers up at night, including the scope is limited in this test that you're doing. Any other questions from the judges? All right. Well, with that, thank you very much for your story. And we will move next to Alice Hardy. Did you hear that noise? Alice, did you hear it?
Hi, it's Alice Hardy. Did you hear that noise? Is really about a junior security analyst being left to their own demise on an engagement. So I'm sure people are familiar with this kind of story. So I'll start with this. The junior analyst is staring into the monitor, wondering what next. Senior analysts are pulled for last-minute tasks. The fluorescent lights draw a dull hum. They're excited and concerned. Will this receive the proper due diligence it deserves? They're left to wing it. Their heart begins to pound and they think to themselves, it's just you and me, server. They've gotten their way onto a server, likely RDP from pulled creds, but now what? Figure out how to find credentials, maybe PII. Well, PowerShell is available. It's not something they're very familiar with, but it's what's there. And so they start to run some search terms. Unfortunately for them, they start running a recursive searches for password. Nothing yet. And then they think, oh, let's try some alternative ways to get info I've read on this person's blog. Okay, well, get location info. I already know that. What about processes? Oh, this looks interesting. How about get 80 user or get 80 group member? After several attempts, fail after fail, no useful output. And then error after error, and a notification pops up in their email. There has been suspicious activity of PowerShell strings with the word password. CERT wants to know if anyone on their team is on this device. But of course, seconds before responding to the email, their remote connection is lost. The noob is realizing they need to learn PowerShell commandlets, especially the ones that run elevated, and uncode or figure out how to obfuscate some activity to avoid so much noise, for crying out loud. We don't know if the analyst ever learned enough PowerShell, and rumor has it they still poke around servers, noisy and unsupervised. That is
Oh,
the
that
short
is
and sweet.
terrifying and humorous, because I think many of us have been here before. Alice, thank you for your story. What would said analyst look to do better if said analyst wanted to advance to the next level of noobery?
Oh, I definitely take notes, definitely research what caused any of that detection activity, try to point and get more guidance from team members on how to better approach a situation like that again.
This is not the analyst's fault. This is the lack of supervision part. That's the fault. That's your leadership, or not the analyst's leadership failed in that aspect.
Yeah, fair point. Leadership is often scary and spooky, and comes at us in the dark.
And I really hope that the analyst didn't die. You said demise, so I'm very scared for that analyst.
Yeah, I think the analyst is not dead yet.
Yes.
I think the analyst has earned a lot of trust to be able to poke around. That's what I've heard.
I hope that analyst got a good mentor, because wasn't coming from internal organizations, doesn't sound like.
Do the other judges have any further questions for Alice?
Just forward
Okay.
forward my information to whatever analyst you're talking about, because like I'll help anytime they want. Like, man, that had me having flashbacks of my entry into InfoSec.
I think it did for many of us. Thank you, Alice, for
Thank
your
you.
terrifying tale. Next up, we have Ian Meyer. Ian, that time I accidentally infiltrated a large rodent-based theme park through underground tunnels. Do tell.
Indeed. Thank you for having me. I hope everyone's completed their summer camp merit badges for their masks and for their distilling sanitizer in your bathtub. But tonight, I have a thrilling and terrifying tale for you. The type of tale that can only make sphincter pucker into diamonds when you find yourself deep in the tunnels and bowels of a multi-billion-dollar rodent-based theme park. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, I know which theme park this is. It's Chuck E. Cheese. But I assure you, my lawyers have told me that I can't mention which theme park it is. But I can assure you, you've heard of it. So, Take yourself back to 1997, a land and time before we remember, a land and time before I understood rules of engagement and worked at a Taco Bell and drove a 84 USPS station wagon. And a friend said, I just got a job at Disney. What? Why are you saying Disney? We're not talking about Disney. Said, I just got a job at a rodent-based theme park and I can get you in. We can main gate. And we all knew as Central Floridians, people could do this. People could main gate into and take guests in. So we said, yes, let's go after high school. Let's go after class and we'll go and we'll ride the rides and we'll enjoy the magic. But what we didn't know or what we didn't realize is our friend was a compulsive and idiotic liar. And as we got there, they said, wait, I'm going to park in the employee parking lot because I don't want to pay for parking. And we said, no, oh, okay. I said, and we're going to go onto this bus. And when they ask you for ID, just tell them you forgot. And at that point, we start thinking, okay. So we walk to the bus and we're thinking, oh, we're just going to go to the main gate and the bus is going to take us there. And they say, no, rightfully, you're not getting on the bus. So then we say, okay, well, I guess we're turning around. We're going to go pay for parking. And they say, no, wait. Get in the station wagon and I'll just drive us to a different gate. But could y'all get in the back of the station wagon and just cover yourself with a blanket? We say, are you 100% certain this is legit? Oh yeah, it's fine. It's just we're going to take some back roads. We don't want anybody to see or ask questions, and I just don't want to have to stop. Oh, okay. So we lay down under the blanket and we park in a small parking area. And as we emerge like out of a clown car from this blanket for 5 scruffy looking teenagers, I look back and I see guards. And to this day, I swear those guards have rifles, maybe in magical colors, Disney princess, whatever it is. But those guards were looking away and we entered into a large tunnel. And suddenly we were realizing, I don't think he's really gonna main gate us into the park. Now, as we're continuing to walk, I realize, wait a minute, as I hear people talking, that this is the Utilidor. And if you've never heard of the Utilidor, it is the main entry into the bowels of the magic, the underground tunnels that connect all the rodent-based kingdom. And we walk and we're seeing everything laid out. We're seeing costumed characters with their heads on spikes. We're seeing, staff members drenched in sweat with cartoon pants on. And we realize that no one is asking us any questions. And it's because it is absolutely ludicrous that anyone would be in there that shouldn't be. And we now realize the danger we're in. Because if we're discovered, we are very, very far inside a very, very, very litigious company, and we are not supposed to be there. And we are 18 years old, and our station wagon is parked somewhere behind armed, eared guards. So we just have to go forward. And as we go forward, we see a door with a Tinkerbell on it. It's important. Remember that. But we keep walking, and we keep walking, and we keep walking, and we keep walking. Finally, we emerge, and we can see the park. We've walked under the entire park. And there it is. There's the Jungle Cruise. There's Main Street, USA. And all we got to do is walk through a gate. Walk across the small piece of asphalt, and we're in. We've done it. We've escaped. We're in the park. We're going to ride the rides. And then we hear, "Can I help you?" And we turn around. And it's a Disney security guard. And they're looking at us. And they say, "Can I help you? How did you find yourself back here?" And all panic-stricken, the friend that works at the park says, "Oh, it's okay. I'm returning these guests to the park." A delightful lie, a beautiful lie, because directly behind us, and behind him was a first aid station, the lie presents itself. They went to first aid. I'm taking them back. And instead, what does our courageous, ignorant, and utterly stupid friend say? They all work here. Now, we have no ID. I've yet to do social engineering. I sling tacos, and I do math in high school. This is what I do for a living. And they look at me, and they say, he doesn't work here. And now I'm terrified. How does this man who lives in this magic kingdom, know that I do not belong? What is it about me that is giving away? Is it the drenching in sweat? Is it what is it? They continue on. No, he works behind the scenes. He works in construction. He works in this. He doesn't work here. Finally, the jig is up. Now, this wonderful security guard says, I'm going to call a friend of mine, and they're going to load you in a van, and they're going to escort you off a property, and we're just going to pretend like this didn't happen. And as that's happening, Johnny Sergeant Pants comes up, like the full, Disney security. They just live for the mouse. And they are, what are these people doing back here? What's going on? I've got it. And we ride in the world's quietest minivan out of the park, not being trespassed. And this is why, my friends, pen testers out there, remember, your grooming habits, your beard can give you away, because what gave me away is you're not allowed to have any facial hair as a Disney employee in 1997. And that Tinkerbell door, had we just exited through it, we would have come out in a private exit behind the castle where Tinkerbell does meet and greets, and would have been in the park. But we walked right by it. And that is my story of tale and woe, of almost being detained, taken away in the world's quietest ride, and unforeseen trespassing of a rodent-based theme park.
Wow. That scared me, and I wasn't even in that position. I'm sure that that many people felt the same way. Ian, that was great. So now that you are presumably farther along in your social engineering career, what did you learn from that event that helped you become a better social engineer?
Oh, absolutely. Know the details. Know when and how you belong. One of my first, maybe second conference talks included this particular story. And it was dress for the job you want to fake, not the job you have. And it was paying close attention to the details, doing, research, going to local cafeterias, restaurants nearby. What do people wear? What do they look like? What do their badges look like? Get to know, those different things, because if just facial hair could give you away that easily and you didn't know those rules, you can do everything to a T and you're still sticking out like a sore thumb.
Yeah. Cindy or Rob, do you have any questions for our distinguished storyteller here?
So one of the, go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to know if you ended up on the blacklist or the deny list, I guess, on Disney on their in their most wanted. I have that. No. I can say that I was on there at one point in time. So
no, and I hope as I tell this story they find the humor in it, if they were to ever hear it. But because it was like I said, it was completely, that was not the intention. An employee escorted us back. He was an employee. He worked there, and we just found out that his britches were bigger in his head than they actually were. So no, and it was like I said, the world's coolest security guard. He was just like, yeah, you're not doing any harm. We'll load you in the van and get you out of here. Whereas that could have gone very, very poorly.
Yeah, I've been on that wall, so I where it could have gone, I absolutely know.
You're on the monorail to hell.
So one of the tricks that you touched on is monitoring what people wear to the place of work and stuff like that. So one of the things that early on in my career, a mentor of mine told me was go to the local coffee shop, dress like you work there, with a badge like you work there, like wherever you're doing a red team pen testing, like look like you're in full get up, but look like you're a peon, like a entry level employee or something like that, and then have the best laptop you can afford, and sit alone, sit in the middle of the coffee shop. People will say, how did you get that from IT? Where did you get that? And they'll start talking to you instead of you talking to them. and they will walk you into the building over to IT so you can explain to them how you got it.
That's really slick.
Right?
That-
Like they will literally walk you into the building and, hey, yeah, just come on, let's walk over to IT and I'll show you the right person to talk to, and we'll get you an upgraded laptop just like me. Done easy.
That's slick. I'm gonna put that in the repertoire. That's nice.
All right. Well, thank you for that, Ian. I just want to remind everybody that every storyteller who came on here tonight is going to get a $20 no starch press gift certificate, which you can use to get any of their awesome books. And the winner gets a donor package for 2022 that includes a badge, a t-shirt, 4 meal tickets for when we all come together and are able to do this in person yet again. So this is going to be a really cool experience, and we may have some other stories from some of the same storytellers who might want to go again. Let me throw it out there. If there's anybody who has a second story, maybe just raise your hand if you want to tell it.
I can keep talking, but let somebody else go before me. You see cell phone?
We have a hand from Cell Phone Dude. Cell Phone Dude, join us around the campfire once again and tell us your scary, spooky story of hacker woe.
So this one is very recent, so it's very unprepared. It's very stream of conscious. But this is a tale of, someone calls you and it's, all fires blazing, pun sort of not really intended because we're sitting around a campfire, but all fires blazing, red alarms everywhere. There's a problem, there's a problem, there's a problem. We need hackers to figure out why is all our stuff broken? Who broke it? So you do your usual, you do your onboarding call and try and figure out the scope of the story and the scope of the machines and scope of work as a whole. And on Windows networks, you start diving through and someone else's story, PowerShell commands, a bunch of PowerShell commands, asking the AD for stuff, getting no answers, asking the AD for stuff, getting no answers. I know these people were here. They have logs that say they were here, but they don't exist. What about the logs where talk about all the old users? Those don't exist. What about all the security logs from like before today? Those don't exist. What about any logs for the security portion of Windows at all? Those don't exist. Why did all the backups get deleted between this date and this date? Why, for whatever reason, is there no central logging across 237 boxes for a multi-million-dollar company that outputs an application for lawyers? Doesn't exist. Companies acquired. In the acquisition, the acquirers of said company decide to cancel the multi-million-dollar MSP contract for the guys who run the infrastructure of the company that they just acquired. Does anyone see where this story is going? Come in one day, everything's gone. Application database is gone. User data database is gone. The actual application server itself is gone. The SQL server that runs the application behind it's gone. As I mentioned, all the logs are gone. There's no central logging in place, so there's nothing to actually go find. So I thought, okay, cool. I have a forensic specialist on my team. I'll have them go ham on the disk. Okay, go ham on the disk. Find all the logs I really sort of wanted to find, at least for one machine. And they're only good enough to tell me that some guy that got deleted from the domain controller logged in and did the stuff that I knew he did. I think the moral of this story is when you log into a domain controller and all the settings are turned from normal defaults to off, you kind of, it's kind of like an open and shut case. Like I got called by the company that hired us to do the investigation, and the guy says to me, he says, well, isn't there more meat that you can add to the remediation? I said, what more meat to the remediation do you want me to add other than turn logging on? That's my campfire story.
Truly terrifying. Logs are an essential part of any campfire and any campfire story. And in this case, the logs were missing, and that is terrifying for anybody with a bag of marshmallows and a stick.
I mean,
Thank you for
if you're a law firm, you don't want to keep anything that's damaging to your clients anyways, right? So like,
Sorry, Rob.
Oh.
I mean,
Oh man.
seems smart to me.
Yeah, well, it's funny. This particular one there's like an extra kick in this one because it's like, all right, so like, it's one thing to like, I've seen a couple where it's like, it's always the MSP that's like, that has this crazy contract. They're getting paid millions of dollars, right? And it's like, oh, we have this one client who basically pays all our bills, but they're going to fire us. I know how we'll get back at them and how we'll get our contract back. We will hack them to all holy hell, and we will make their infrastructure suffer. So we will be the heroes that they will call. But it's precisely what will happen. And then there's a non-zero amount of times that happens. But then there's, the amount of times
Except for when it's
live,
lawyers.
and they call an investigator to figure out what's going on, and then it's like, y'all didn't think to maybe lock out the dudes that you just told you were taking a multi-million-dollar contract from? Well, no, they were doing work. Okay. So from a logistical perspective, at no point during the business relationship did you think that telling them that they were going to lose the contract while they were in the middle of doing work products for you, in the middle of an acquisition, at no point that was a bad idea? And this is how I actually talk to people. Like, some of you know me actually really in person, and I kind of am this way with clients because English works best. And like, you should, and everyone had their fucking camera on, and I of course didn't. And so I turned my camera on and I just start looking like, so that didn't register at all. And everyone just thought that looking at the bottom line and handling the hemorrhaging operational costs was going to be the thing to do here, instead of really looking at the fiscal understanding of why they might spend $1 million with one company for many years over and over and over and over and over. No, you just thought to acquire them and get rid of them. Okay. Well, now you don't have an application or an application server or a user database.
I mean, most people don't want to go to jail, so that would, you assume that people will not want to go to jail.
Oh yeah, they did a good job with that. They removed every single log from their entire time that they were engaged at the company and touched any of the machines. I deployed GRR through the entire infrastructure, just looking for just SIDs and stuff that I knew was there, all fucking gone, dude. Like worse than someone like me going through and be like, haha, never gonna find me.
Something to be said for offsite backups, I guess.
Bruh. Or any backup or any log
Right.
or any central logging or anything doing it. But it's like, and then it's weird because it's like, oh, well, I asked them, I was like, so do you know about, the domain controller's logs being turned off and set so that there's no logging? Do you know about this and this and this being set wrong? No, we have no, it's okay. So what was the problem here is that you guys didn't take control of your infrastructure before you remove control of your infrastructure. That's a problem. That's an operational problem.
Yep.
Sorry, I'm making take too much time. I just, recent shit that just recent happened and I'm still processing it. It's like, really? All right.
Can judges tell stories?
We can. Rob, if you would like to tell a story, let's hold it until after we have announced the winner, and then
Sure.
We can allow you to tell some of your terrifying tales from
I would like to hear a Rob
Hackerdom.
story.
I would too. We do have one more from Ian. Ian, I believe you have one for us that's called "It's Coming from Inside the Data Center."
It is. Yes. So, as we find ourselves here, I'm going to tell you another tale of terror and packetized woe that comes only from the types of times where you're challenged to understand what's actually going on. A few years ago, you come into work, we sit down, the security team, and by about noon, every site of 800 retail locations dispersed throughout the United States is hard down. Nothing can move. There's no traffic moving. They can't log in. Everything is overwhelmed with some nefarious and yet undiscovered traffic pattern. Now, the network teams come running to security. It's a DDoS attack. It's a nation state. We're under attack. It has to be a DDoS. Now, the security team looks. They look around and say, there's something not right. Everyone's terrified. They're running around. The sites are down. What do we do? But we can still get in from the outside. We have to use an adjacent company's guest Wi-Fi, and we can get in. Everything's there. But the stores, the corporate headquarters, are completely saturated. No one can figure out what's going on. It has to be in the building. And as we look, and as we discover, it wasn't just in the building. It wasn't just in the data center. It was in the core router itself. The ghost of Spanning Tree Past. In a room hidden above the data center, a lone cable rose 10 gigs for imaging of laptops and desktops. And a cable, a single cable, some say is still there today, was looped back into the patch panel, sending terabytes of terrifying images through the router again and again and again until the company was brought to its knees. On that day, they said it was a nation state. They said it was China. They said it was attackers unknown. Others said it was the intern. Others said it was the custodian. We may never know it was the intern. But the cable was plugged in. The systems were brought down. And for those moments, we didn't know if it was the ghost of change control past Spanning Tree gone amok, or a simple intern plugging in a cable, thinking they're doing the right thing. And that's the story.
Ian, truly terrifying, especially the intern part. I think when you have interns getting blamed for multi-billion-dollar security issues in front of Congress, maybe your company shouldn't be able to fall over because of an intern. I mean, I don't know. Maybe, that's just wishful thinking.
Name one company that isn't.
Yeah, run by interns.
I'm just saying, name a company that can't be toppled by an intern.
Oh,
Please.
I don't think that's not reality. I mean, absolutely. Every single, yeah. I mean,
well, perhaps that's the scariest part of all of these tales is how vulnerable and exposed these organizations are, not to nation state level threats, but to simple accidents.
Yeah.
All
lack
right.
of knowledge
With that,
every time.
Did the intern survive?
always a good question to ask.
They did. They did survive. They actually, and I mean that truthfully. It really actually was the intern. We found out that they were in there imaging laptops and they're unplugging network cables, and they lit, and it was right around lunchtime, and they're like, oh, I must have knocked this one loose, and they plugged it back in and went to lunch, and thankfully they were a very well liked intern. And to everyone's point, that shouldn't be possible. It's like, okay, well, here's a cannon and just try not to kill yourself. You generally offer some training on the howitzer before you give it to them. So yeah,
Also, don't put it in front of them.
sorry, aimed at them. Which way does this fucking go? So yeah, so they were very well liked, and everyone was like, no, it was actually kind of funny. The people that they worked for were like, oh, I think it was the custodians. Like, yes, because the custodians are in there at lunchtime just cleaning up the place. Sure, okay. But it wasn't a problem. Like they were still there, and I'm sure they have their own terrifying campfire story of when they plugged in a network cable and brought a multi-billion-dollar company to its knees.
Yeah, and to Rob's point earlier, leadership management and some of the way that they support their people is also a scary part of that tale. So thank you very much for that. For all of our storytellers, we greatly appreciate you. We now have a celebrity guest story queued up and ready to go, I believe. Lickety, do the thing.
Well, hello, campers, hackers, hackerlings, and everyone else. It's your Uncle Jack with a little campfire story time while the judges do their thing. So, what stories to tell? Well, once upon a time, my friend Paul, no, wait, Bob, my friend Bob borrowed one of my virtual labs, which was based in Moscow at the time. And oh, right, never mind. Bob doesn't like prison. Okay, how about another story? How about this one? Once upon a time. Oh, we need a campfire, don't we? There we go. This is better. Once upon a time, about 12 years ago, a bunch of people were complaining on Twitter. I know that seems hard to believe, but it's true. People were complaining on Twitter. But it was actually a productive conversation because some of us had been talking about a lack of community feel in some events. And we saw some talks that we thought, that's cool, but it's probably not a lot of people interested. The people that are going to be interested are going to be really interested, but it's not going to fill a big room. It's too bad there isn't a place for those folks to share these ideas. And then we saw some others. It's like, the big conferences, they just get too many talks. They can't take them all. It's like, oh, okay, that's life. But we saw a few that were like, yeah, that's really not a fully baked idea. It's a pretty cool idea, but it's not ready for prime time. And we said to ourselves and each other, it's really too bad that there isn't a place that they could give these talks, get some feedback, and turn this into a really cool project or a really cool presentation or whatever it was. Just too bad there's no place to do it. And we saw some more that were just like, I'm sure they got 10 of those. They chose the best. That's really too bad. They can't take them all. And then we saw a few that were just like, that's not really a fit for the conferences this summer. That's not really a fit for those other conferences. I don't know where this one fits. It's really too bad that things that interest the hacker mindset can't always find a place to be heard. And so we said, it's really too bad there isn't a place for it a lot. And the bright idea was hatched. Maybe we should make a place for it, and we'll just do this thing this year. And Chris Nickerson had rented a house, and Mike Don and Chris and I and a bunch of 303 folks who didn't, some were friends, some didn't know each other except for on the internet. We got together and we sort of made a thing happen. And that thing, it looked like this because the air conditioning wasn't up to speed. So there was a lot of duct tape and masking tape and garbage bags and tarps on the roof and things. But what happened then was an event happened, and we filled rooms, and there were talks large and small, and there were talks on gender issues in the field, and HD gave his first talk on Warvox, and there was just a whole bunch of cool stuff. And if the talk wasn't your thing, you went into the next room, which was the kitchen, and you grabbed a snack or a drink, and you sat down and had side conversations. And by the second day, there were lightning talks going on, and the pool was going. And the second night, there was a wild party that was fantastic. And it was all wonderful. And it sort of exploded from there. But, you know, every good campfire story needs a little scare. So as Indy was leaving for the afternoon, the last person to leave, except for Jarrell. Jarrell was lying on the couch saying, I'm tired, I'm going to take a nap. And Indy said, just don't burn the house down. And he came back to a house full of smoke. Carpet burned, a door burned, an extension cord burned. Here's a pro tip. Do not coil up an extension cord, then plug an extension cord or an air conditioner into it, and then set a door on top of the coil. Science and stuff. Anyway, other than some hacking and coughing and a good scare, nothing really bad happened. And this is the 676th B-sides since that one in July of 2009. Thank you all for joining us and for being a part of it.
Wow, that was a fantastic story of B-sides Las Vegas hacker history with
And
a little
what could
hope
have,
and a little horror.
yeah, it could have been really scary for us if the house had burnt down. We wouldn't be able to do B-sides now.
That's true. How close everyone came.
Yeah, and almost every year since then has had some kind of an element of what if, right? I mean, the Artisan
Yes.
Hotel all by itself. Heck.
All right, before we announce tonight's winner, I want to give my distinguished judges an opportunity to say a couple of words just about this event or anything else that they want to say before we announce the winner. Cindy, go to you. Oh, sorry, Nels, go to you.
Good.
Thanks, Bo. I just want to thank everybody for joining us tonight, for sharing their stories with us and for joining on the stream to hang out. We're really excited to be doing Campfire Talks and, you know, trying new things and reaching out and stretching our talents in new directions. So I'm thrilled that everybody joined us and volunteered to get on camera for who knows how many people and, and tell stories. So thank you all very much for being here.
Yep. Cindy, you're next.
Cool. To echo Nelson's statements there, thank you all so much for joining us. This has been a blast. Your stories have been amazing. There was some debate happening behind the scenes during the course of this debate, internal debate too. Is kind of great in my part, anyways. I just want to really give Lickety and Bo a huge shout out for what they put together here. Lickety for rallying like nobody's business before this started, and see, it's all good now. We're cruising. It's all good. Everything's cool. So thank you guys all for putting this together, and it was my pleasure to be here. And thanks again to the storytellers as well as my fellow judges.
Thanks, Rob.
Y'all suck at following directions. He said, say a few words about this. So a few words. See, y'all.
Oh,
suck.
Rob, you're so literal.
I am very literal.
Right.
No, thanks for putting this together, Bo. When you first told me about this happening, I was super excited about it. I think year one, this is, just starting off, going to kick off, make so much, I'm looking forward to year 2, 3, 5, 10. And we'll see how the stories evolve. Thanks for all the stories that y'all told too. That was awesome.
Yeah, I agree. I'm really excited to see what comes next. And especially if we can have this in person back together again. We'll have to next year figure out how to rig up a campfire display. Maybe we'll put Caspian on that. And
you'll be out by the fire pits by the pool, right?
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah, there you go.
Fire right there.
I like it.
That's where we like sitting. so
Yes.
fun.
Get really close to that fire. Just lean on it.
You know,
That'll be perfect.
Get toasty. That's you can warm your hands.
Okay, Bo, how exactly do you lean on a fire? Like that, it's not possible.
This one actually has a glass rim around it that you could lean on in theory. So,
and it has
Yes.
it's in a table, so like, you know, there's a table space and then there's
yeah,
the
you can
glass.
lean on it.
Yes, but there's no,
Sure.
like, physics tell me that I can't actually lean on a fire.
Stop being
Well, I
literal,
tell you
Rob.
what, next year,
Yeah.
Well, he'll be a ghost.
next year we can do experiments.
There you go.
We'll find out. All right. Well, with that, an exciting announcement to make. And again, remember that the winner of this will get a donor package for 2022, which comes with a badge, T-shirt, 4 meal tickets, and the winner is Ian Meyer for his story "That Time I Accidentally Infiltrated a Large Rodent-Based Theme Park Through Underground Tunnels." Ian, thank you very much. Do you want to give us a couple of thoughts about what it means to win?
It's awesome. Thank you. I love telling stories, and thank you for having me. And I love B-Sides and all my friends and everyone at B-Sides Orlando. And you know, it's been wonderful being here. It's very, very enjoyable, and I hope this continues on and other people decide to jump in and tell their stories. So thank you. No, it's awesome.
So, Ian,
Well, thank
really
you
quick
to you.
before we cut out, I have to tell Ian how his headrest on both. Nels actually brought it up in our chat. She's like, does anybody else think that that's part of a cape and like a popped up collar on a cape? And I legitimately thought it was. So you have filled the role and the costume very well.
It goes with the background even. The cape goes
Totally
with the
does.
background.
Yeah, the whole thing.
Exactly. We brought a vampire to our campfire.
I wish I would have thought of that, to be honest, because that would have been great. I have like a cloak. But
you didn't need it. This is what it looked like.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It was great.
No, this
Sorry
is
for
fantastic.
interrupting.
Well,
Bo.
thank you very much to all of our storytellers. As Cindy mentioned, we had some pretty intense debate going on behind the scenes about which one of these stories from which one of the storytellers was the one that we wanted to select. They were all really, really amazing, and hopefully we got this recorded and can keep this around because these are going to be, I think, an amazing resource for people who want to laugh and learn.
I thought, Bo, I thought that Rob was going to tell us the story before we cut out.
Yes, I was just going to say, I think we can end the more formal part of this session and devolve into just free for all campfire jump in. So Rob, if you want to go first as our first storyteller, you are welcome.
Sure. So this is a story from a while ago. And some people who may or may not be on this call or watching know this story pretty well. It is the story of walking on water. So I have a few claims to fame, and one of which is I can literally walk on water. And so I was doing an assessment one time, or let's make it a story. Sorry. Some random person was doing an assessment one time. I'm sorry, I'm not as good a storyteller as y'all. And we went out to do this site assessment for this building. They had security guards and guns and dogs and gates and really scary stuff. And none of us wanted to go do a physical assessment against this place. And they had badges and visual cues to who the badge owned by. And we're like, we're never going to get in here. And all of the gates were so far away from any of the buildings, we couldn't do Wi-Fi attacks because like you can send, but you're not received and all this bad stuff. We're like, yeah, we're screwed. We're not going to, we'll just go back and say we did our best and there's nothing on this because we don't want to get shot. And so we go back from our site assessment and we start writing up our findings because we know nothing's going to happen when we actually come out for the real thing. And so this is around September, October, November timeframe. And the timing is very important because we go back out in January. And we go back out to our assessment in January. And there's this huge, deep raging river behind this facility, and it's there. And one of the people in our group was like, hey, if we could rent a canoe or something, we could probably paddle across this thing. And on the other side, we could drive to the other side. And when we were out for the site assessment, and this river is going probably 100 miles an hour. Like there's no way we're going to get in this thing and do anything but like float down river thousands of miles and get lost. And so we go back out for our actual assessment. We're like, okay, we tried to swipe someone's badge. We, at the local coffee shop, because that's a go-to for us. We walk around to look at the guards. Guards lock eyes with us. We're like, okay, that's not happening. And we walk around the facility a little bit more, and we're like, hold on a minute. The river's frozen. So this river had not frozen in like 50, 60 years. Never, ever, like so long it hadn't, like never frozen. And it had frozen that night, like the night before. And so we walk out on the river and start like, do you really want to like test this? This is scary, right? And so we walk out onto the river, and we walk across like, I think it's like 2 football fields wide, walk across this river that has frozen for the first time in decades. And we get over to the other side, and it's a steep cliff, like a cliff that you don't want to get out of a canoe or anything out of, because you're gonna, like, the canoe's gonna tip. So we start walking up the cliff, get into the facility. We walk right up to our point of contact's desk inside the facility, and he's like, how in hell did you just do that? And we're like, we can walk on water, that's why. And that's my story.
Wow, that was excellent. Thank you for
That was
sharing,
very
Rob.
cool.
Right place, right time. That's like it, and it unfroze like 2 days later, like just perfect timing.
Well done.
I wonder if that's in their
Threat model.
threat model. Yeah, they were considered it. I mean, it hasn't frozen in decades, but they even put that in their threat model. Contingency planning for that. Wow, pretty cool.
Hey,
Yep.
hey, Rob, do we get to ask questions now? So
Sure.
the judge,
Yeah, do it.
first? Okay. Which Bash Bunny module freezes the stream?
I'm sorry. No Hup. No Hup does it. Oh man,
All right.
I got so many fun stories. Who's next?
Who else has got a story? Cindy, you've
My
got
hot dog.
stories.
I've got stories. I can't think of any. I mean, I shared off camera about the time that I took down the network, being the intern, being the wrong person. I don't know. There's so many times when you walk into an organization and you're just blown away with the fact that their identity management system is being managed by another party somewhere who doesn't know what they're doing. I mean, you just, all the time as a consultant, you got all these little, like, are you kidding me? Those moments that happen all the time. But I think one of the biggest horror stories I have is around working for product manufacturers and doing assessments for them, and being called upon by customers to meet their security requirements. And the expectation around some of these organizations that are your customers of doing things like patching a medical device in 3 days for a critical vulnerability that's been deployed to a customer site that we have no connectivity to. And the ridiculousness of that expectation and the horror comes in from the sales team, because they freak out. They have no idea this is not something that we can get accomplished. So having that happen is pretty interesting. But Yeah, I think my hot dog. I have some hot dogs on the fire over here, and they're looking a little burnt right now. And I think I really need some nutrients. So my White Claw is not carrying me through tonight.
Well, thank you for that pseudo story, Cindy.
Pseudo, exactly.
Pseudo or pseudo? Now I'm just trolling. All right. Unless there are any other stories, I think we can conclude this
On the stream right now.
televised campfire.
Sure.
And cell phone dude, why don't you mute yourself before you tell us all who you're talking to?
You can mute
There's
him,
a
right?
story. I gave up host control to Lickety, so Lickety can.
Okay. There we go.
Awesome. All right. Well, on that terrifying tale of Zoom horror, we will now wish you all a good night and
It's laughing so hard it's
well.
shaking.
Good night, everyone.
Have a good night.